A wise man once told me, there are those who will and those who actually will. Don't let thought precede action by too big a margin. I see ambition left standing stagnant at traffic lights like it's waiting for permission to go. When all I perceive leads me to believe that red lights are only internal, self-imposed. I have seen it. Quick wits akin to sick whips, fast cars left neglected. He told me he had ambition but no drive. I replied, maybe the fumes from that diesel fuel you're ingesting are not effective for your petrol engine. He knew this. I have been this. Ambition but lacking clear vision, and so my passion was the atlas by which my path was directed. I never knew exactly where I was headed. Just let my headlights through darkest nights provide the right amount of guidance for me to keep on stepping. You must always keep on stepping. Because for me to get from A to B, I do not need to see B. Just only know the road ahead is correct for my journey. She told me, you are lucky. Your passion can make you money. And this is true. But do not chase the money, chase your passion, and the money will surely follow you. She said she was not fixated on the cash. That's just a necessary evil. And I agree. But don't let that provide a roadblock between you and your dreams. She said dreams. All she wanted to do was to know what she wanted to do. So I said, this is the age of Google. If we do not know something, we simply search for it. I have called it, he, she, many things, this untamable beast beating inside my ribcage, or the curious child inside insisting on playing, or even the bitter old man whose acquaintance I hope never to make, who given a chance might say, I wish I had done more when I was your age. And that I simply cannot take. And so these days, people call me impatient, but I'm just sick of waiting. He told me, make sure you are ready. I said, we can never be ready, only prepared, like trying to take flight in the hope that our wings composed of knockbacks, experiences, successes, and failures have not grown threadbare. He told me he was passionless. My older brother, he told me he was passionless. I told him at passionless was more than some had passion left. Avert your gaze from the rear view, stalling over all you wish you did do. Instead, keep your forward focus. I do this as much because I want to as because I have to. Something inside is taken hold, and you'll know it when it grabs you. It's that child, let that guide you, because following your passion is only as risky as kissing that girl you've always liked but never had the courage to pursue. At least if you try and you fail, then you know she just wasn't right for you. And that's all right. But not trying is far worse than failing. Because not knowing is an ailment for which there is no prescription, and there never, ever will be. All around me, I see people flourish and flounder, succeed and stagnate, driven and directionless, and I feel I can relate to both sides equally. But what can I do to inspire? Because they say that talk is cheap and actions speak. I said, they say that talk is cheap and actions speak louder than words. And I just hope my verbs reverberate and they move something. And the friction sparks a flame inside that leads to fires burning so bright it causes you to do something. The revolution shall be televised, or at least YouTube. You choose your path and carve it apart. Because there are as many people that look up to you as you look up to. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you guys very much for having me. My name is Solomon O.B. I am an artist, a poet, and a musician, and holder of quite a controversial opinion. 2016 was actually a really good year for me. I know, let me explain. A lot of bad stuff happened. The reason I say this is because it was the year that allowed me to go from working my 9 to 5, which didn't really suit me, and allowed me to become a self-employed artist for the first time in my life. Worth a round of applause? So I'm going to start off by saying 3 things. Number 1, I'm incredibly lucky to wake up every single day and do what I love for a living. It's a privilege that I think I'll ever take for granted. Number 2, some people know what they want to do from a very young age, and they work really hard to go and chase that and make it happen. I was not one of those people. Largely speaking, these people are few and far between. Number 3, I always forget number 3. Number 3, the path that led me to where I am today, standing on the stage, was far from linear. So many twists and turns and a lot of trial and error, which you're about to hear about. So let's rewind to 2014. I was a charity fundraiser. For those that don't know, it's one of those overly enthusiastic people that will come around knocking on your door trying to get you to sign up to a charity. The job suited me pretty well, to be honest. It gave me a lot of flexibility to pursue my creativity outside of work, which was pretty perfect. The job started at around 3:30 in the afternoon. Didn't finish till 9 o'clock at night. I've always been naturally quite nocturnal. So for me to be able to come home at around 10 or 11, have my evening meal, chill out, watch a bit of YouTube, it was kind of perfect. It meant that anywhere from around 12 a.m. through to 5 some nights, I could focus on what I really wanted to do. Rapping, writing, making music, essentially, creating. And so for a while, this weird dynamic of, living more at night than in the daytime, it worked perfectly for me. Until something changed. For the first time in my life, my time became more valuable than my money. I want you to think about that for a second. When this happened, I decided I needed to make a change. So I went from working 5 days a week and having 2 days to myself at weekends, the standard, to working 3 days a week and having 4 for myself. Of course, this meant there was less money. I just simply spent more wisely, walked more instead of catching a bus, got drunk a bit less, just making sure that I was wise with my money so I could effectively buy myself more time. To this day, one of the best decisions I've ever made. Those 4 days in a row to myself, focusing on my art and creating, you could build so much momentum. Investing so much time and energy into something, obviously you're going to see a natural progression in what you do. So I started to see myself improve, which was a great feeling. And it was around this time as well that I kind of fell into spoken word. So again, this new dynamic of 3 days of work, 4 days off was working really well. My mental health was probably at an all-time high because I was generally more happy. I had more enthusiasm for those 3 days of work because it was only 3 days of work. And so, yeah, the balance was perfect. This lasted for about 18 months or so. And then, I don't know, call me selfish, but having just 4 days of my own week to myself to decide what I wanted to do with was no longer enough. It started to become increasingly frustrating having to cut writing sessions short to get ready to go and do a job that I didn't really want to do. And this is with no disrespect to the job. Longest job I ever did, the most enjoyable job I'd ever done. But at this stage of my life, I don't think anything would have satisfied me except for my passion. And this was starting to reflect itself in the way I was behaving at work. I was either calling in sick for shifts when I wasn't, turning up late, or when I was at work, my mind was somewhere else, thinking about what I wanted to write next, what I had just written, just focusing on my art, basically. And one day, my boss calls me in for a disciplinary meeting, says to me, "So, I know how much your music, your art means to you, but you have to understand how much this job means to me. This is my passion, and your behavior is damaging that." And that really put things into perspective for me, because it made me realize that even though it wasn't intentional, my behavior was being really selfish. In thinking about what I wanted to do, I was taking away from someone else's passion. And he was great about it. He said, "You're a valued member of this team. There's always a place here for you." But it was probably best at that point for us to part ways and for me to go and do what I needed to do. So I had around £800 of holiday pay saved up at this point from the job. And bear in mind, I hadn't left the UK for about 8 years. So the urge to go on a holiday somewhere was pretty big. But I said no. I said to myself, spend this money wisely. Use it almost as like a trial shift. I worked out this £800 could buy me 2 months of rent, a little bit of money for food and for bills. So I said, over these next 2 months, get up every day and imagine that your art is your job. I want you to get up every single day and write, record, send off emails for shows and festival applications. Work as hard as you would if this was your profession. And it was the most liberating experience ever. It was the first time since university that I had created every single day. And the feeling of being your own boss, setting out your own timetable and running your own life, super empowering. And so when the money ran out, I had to go back to work. But I didn't want to go back to work. Just said to myself, this feels so good, this feels right, just keep going and hopefully things will work out. They didn't. Ended up missing the next month's rent. I was like, it's cool, it's fine, I'll just get more shows, I'll catch up with this month, and then next month as well, it'll be fine, it's all good. That didn't happen. Missed the second month, and then a third, and then a fourth. I know, right? And then my landlord calls me up and says, like, what's going on? My accountant just tells me you haven't paid rent for the last 4 months. You have a week to pay me what was close to about £2,000. Otherwise, I am kicking you out and taking you to court. So I'm there thinking to myself, well done. You quit your job, chased your passion, and now you're going to be homeless with a court case. Smart move, eh? And then something amazing happened. All the work I'd put in with little to no kind of payoff, all the effort I'd been investing into myself and the time, it all paid off at the exact right moment. That very same week, a whole bunch of shows came in. Some people I was working for were kind enough to pay me in advance to help me out. And the little money that I didn't have, couldn't make up myself, friends and family were kind enough to lend me until I could pay them back. And so I've texted my landlord and said, yes, cool, I've got the money, it's all fine. And I'm just wondering to myself, how has this actually happened? How have I gone from the last 2, 3, 4 months previous of making next to nothing, of sometimes having to fast for like 10 hours a day because I could only afford one meal, to being able to accumulate this amount of money in the space of a week? And that was when it really clicked. That was when I knew that this was possible. I just had to be patient, allow myself to build, allow people to know what I'm doing and that this is where I am, come and find me, I'm here. From that point on, it went from strength to strength, and making a sustainable living from my artistry became easier and easier. Over the same time period, I was crowned National Slam Poetry Champion by an organisation called Hammer and Tongue, which helped to raise my profile massively. Excuse me. And yeah, I've not really looked back since, well, until now. Don't get me wrong, I am not advising any of you guys to follow this path. As you can see, it wasn't the most well thought out. I got very lucky, and I don't want to spread the myth that you can just one day quit your job and chase your passion. Realistically, you're setting yourself up to fail. My plan was very reactionary, impulsive, but it was a plan nonetheless. A plan that was built on a foundation of confidence afforded to me by the previous 5 years of writing, recording, and performing. I'd worked on my creativity alongside my job for years and had been earning small amounts of money in some shape or form from my art for the previous 7 or 8. So I knew I could do this. If I'd known this point was coming, I would have saved more money. More like £3,000 or £4,000 as opposed to 800. But I didn't know this point was coming. This is the problem that we often face as creatives. I had to learn so much through trial and error, and it was hard. Largely speaking, this isn't the same for other professions with a well-trodden career path. If you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, or a teacher, the steps you need to take are relatively well laid down. With self-employed artistry, it can sometimes seem like searching for a key beneath the feet of 1,000 people in a busy crowd. There is no blueprint for this. I know of so many creatives whose passion could pay their bills. And what's more frustrating, the thing that's holding them back is a lack of practical application of business knowledge rather than talent or skill. And until we make a change, a lot of these skills can go to waste, in danger of wasting some of the greatest creative minds of our generation. I know of so many creative people who are making a living in very varied ways. John Railton plays bass for his passion, but his business head lies in tour management. Jimbo Breen plays a graphic designer by day, but at night his bills are paid by the drums that he plays. My close friend Jamie makes his living through carpentry, but he's also earning a fee for helping me produce my debut EP. Mates race, of course, but it's a fee nonetheless. The shape of all of their lives is dictated by what they do. And so obviously there is no one blueprint, no size that fits all for every creative or every self-employed person. All I'm really advocating for is more forms of available resources to help people out. I could have easily given up. I'm pretty stubborn and hard-headed, so I didn't. But the fact that being self-employed as a business can be so difficult could be enough to deter people from it. And that's something that we need to avoid. I'm running out of time, slowly but surely. So I want to kind of leave you guys with just one last thing. Something that helped me out massively midway through this first year of working for myself was having a mentor. Her name is Zena Edwards, absolute legend. She's been an artist for 20 plus years. And the amount of experience that she has from that is invaluable. She could help alleviate some of my fears with just a simple half-an-hour phone call, a simple reply to my email, just to let me know that the peaks and troughs I was going through when I was starting out were completely normal. The more we can have people who are experienced in our field, who can give you some guidance, people that have already achieved what you aspire to do, the more we can help people feel like they're not walking through the dark on this journey, and that there is, without sounding too cliche, light at the end of the tunnel. If there's anybody out there who this resonates with and you feel like you might want to go and work for yourself as you get older, I want to say don't let fear hold you back. There were some times when I doubted myself if I'd made the right choice when things got tough and money got very low. And I just said to myself, you're happier than you've ever been. The money might not be there, but the passion is there. You're creating every single day, and it's all you've ever wanted to do. If the money comes, that's great, but this is not what you do it for. You've always said if you can do this and just be comfortable and make a living, then you're winning. And I'm very blessed to be in that position now. Thank you guys for having me.